Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Forever Bristol City podcast. For those of you that are watching live, we're a little bit late in starting because my normally reliable office internet, where I usually do it, just couldn't connect. So I dashed back home, and Ian, who was trying to connect, he's dropped out. But I'm delighted that I'm joined by Mark. And we're going to be talking about the game at the MKM Stadium that finished Hull City 1. Bristol City won. We haven't won on the opening day of the season since 2020. That was the Dean Holden 4 straight wins. And maybe with Keith Stroud as a referee, never given us a penalty, no great surprises that we didn't get a point. But we certainly deserve 3. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, frustrating game, David. We deserve 3 points. So many boxes to tick. Played some fluid football from the back. Max great in goal. Dickey dominant as usual in central defence. Max Bird had a great game going forward, turning the ball over, pressing. But when we got to the final third, our decision making, our crossing, our shooting were absolutely woeful. And despite what we'll come on to was a great goal, then our discipline cost us. Discipline which was an aberration in an otherwise very well disciplined City performance. 3 points were passed up. 2 points were dropped, and we should have got all 3. We should be celebrating an opening game win, but we didn't, and we got to sort out. I don't think it's something it's not Liam Manning's fault. It's the fact that the players have got to be more decisive in their decision making when they release the ball, when they put their foot through the ball, the runs they make into the box, all of those things in the final third, which are the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, and I mean, you say the difference between winning and losing. I mean, Brian Tinian said at the end of the season that we're 10 to 12 points away from getting that elusive 6th spot. It's a day like today when you come up against a Hull team that hadn't really met them, hadn't really gelled as a unit, that you've got to pick up those extra 2 points. And when you say it's not Liam Manning's fault, no, it's not his fault because he can't control them once they go over the line. But we've seen this so many times from City, this inability to cross as well. Ian, he's written a report that's on YouTube of the game, and he highlighted 6 weaknesses, and they're all coachable, aren't they? Coach-outable, the bad ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's a bit of a brick wall sometimes when you get into a certain area, and it's that instinctive pass, pass the ball early. Take that touch, the first touch, which might take you away from a player and put you in a better position. Just putting your foot through the ball, getting your head over the ball, and executing a finish. All those things we didn't do. Just those little things, those very fine margins. Yeah, I suppose it's coachable, but we put ourselves in a position to do all of those things right. We had so many opportunities to kill that game stone dead. But if you don't, you're just one mistake away from dropping points, and that's what we did. I mean, the goal that we got was a fantastic
come back to the detail of that in a bit.
It was all fantastically executed. It was a goal that deserved to win a game, and it makes you want to cry, basically, the fact that we didn't do it. But we can only call it. I mean, people might say, well, look, it's only the first game of the season. We can only call it as we see it. We've got to be critical. We praise the good points, and we've got to be critical of the bad points. And today was just wasteful finishing in the final third, and wasteful passing and movement. Just little things. You've got to sort them out, but we can do it.
That's a good summation, Mark. Actually, Ian, you've written a piece that I've just read. You're following your true vocation now, being a journalist, which you told me, like me, when you were in your teens, you wanted to do it, and neither of us got English. I got English CSE grade 1, and you joined the Navy. Yeah, but we're not scribes.
Well, you're close, mate. I joined the Air Force.
All right, same thing. Not really. Yeah. But you've written
that's the song that Village people didn't sing, wasn't it, in the Air Force?
You've written a very good piece, Ian, since the end of the game, and you highlighted 6 weaknesses of City's play. So would you like to read those out?
Yeah. The final ball, decision making, crossing, set piece delivery by both Williams and Bird normally, getting players into the box when the ball was in wide areas, and shooting. And players won't get into the box if they don't think the delivery is going to come in from wide areas. And I was wondering, when we signed you, I thought, well, or I should say, not you, Dave, Hirakawa. I thought, why are we signing another winger? Because when we're not playing with wingers, playing with wing backs, and we've got Mehmeti, we've got Bell, we've got Sykes. But if he can cross a ball, he could solve one of those problems, or at least on one side of the field. And all those things.
But talking about crossing the ball, I mean, I said on an earlier pod this week, we were very fortunate, along with the guys from Three Peeps and one Stream in Bristol, to have a meeting with Liam Manning. And he said, and this is a Japanese thing, isn't it? He said Hirakawa, when he was fit to train with us, he put in a wonderful cross, and he said, "Boss, I'd like it to be 2 inches higher." You know, that's the precision that we want with crosses. Whereas at the moment, they're pretty poor, aren't they?
Well, we hit the first defender too often, and it was in that area that we had problems defensively at right back, where George Tanner and Mark Sykes didn't get close enough to close down Giles, who was playing on the left wing. He normally his best position's left wing back, and he put in some telling crosses. And you can see why they wanted to sign Tommy. Because if he'd have been in the box, I think we could have been at least one down. 2 really good saves from Max, but really poor defending from City. I mean, Mark Sykes got a really good flick on for Hull, and their lad volleyed it across the box, and Max tipped it away. And the other one, he had to stick his arm out, but he blocked Estupiñán at point blank range. Well, we could have been, 2-0 down. And I'm sorry, but we're out that game against a side that we more or less completely dominated. I mean, we'd had 60% of the ball at halftime. And what the stat was after the first 15 minutes of the second half, it must have been 75-80. So there were lots of good things about today's performance, but I'm afraid those items weren't one of them.
Okay, Mark, everybody sort of was trying to predict what the starting lineup would be. And there were changes from the side that came up against Willem II last week, weren't there? But what did you think of the 11 and the bench? That made for interesting reading as well. Mark, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I called the side apart from Armstrong for Mayulu. That's exactly what I thought. Thought they bring in Joe Williams to strengthen the midfield with Max Bird, in front of them. So I thought, we looked quite strong. I didn't expect Pekaver on the bench. I'd never heard of the guy before today. I've been told he's a 16-year-old who can play a variety of roles by Ian. So congratulations to him, because we put a lot of youngsters on the bench. I think we got a few injury problems with Ross McCrory, Rob Atkinson, and some others who unfortunately are injured at the moment. So I think that was probably the strongest 11, apart from maybe you could put Armstrong from Mayulu. But I thought Armstrong, he's a bit raw. Some of his running could be improved, but he's very strong, and he does bully defenders. I mean, where we can play the ball, you can do a couple of things. He can link play, and he can flip balls on if you want to go long. He can back into defenders to be a false number 9 and bring other players into play. And his touch on the ball isn't too bad. I think he needs to make some better runs into the box when we cross the ball, if we get a good cross in. And just be a little bit sharper. His thinking's got to be a little bit quicker. But I didn't think he had a bad debut.
No, okay. Mark, Ian, I didn't talk to Mark about the bench, but let's talk about it with you and indeed Bird playing in the 10. But I mean, the big surprise was Peckover, who came on for that. I'll call it extended cameo. I think it was in the away friendly at Aldershot. No place on the bench. No place on the bench for Cornick or Nelson. Did that surprise you that Peckover got the nod over those two?
Well, it surprised me he got the nod over Nelson, but then obviously Liam Manning seeing something with him in training, and he's getting a select ahead of Nelson and Elijah Morrison. That could be because he can play a variety of positions. He can play 7, 10, 9, 11. And as a friend of ours, Pete Wood, said when he saw him at Aldershot, how old was the bloke that came on? And I said, well, he's a 16-year-old kid. And he said, I thought he was about 23, 24. But no, I thought Max Bird did well at 10. I thought that's where he'd play. Knight, I think, personally, Knight and Bird are better as 8s. And if we were playing 3 narrow in midfield, you'd have Joe Williams as the more defensive one, and those two doing the running and passing and supporting the forwards, but we're not. But no, I thought I was surprised by it. Cornick's picked up a slight injury. It was a bit of a back spasm in training last week, but he's said to be okay. Of the injured, or I'll call them unavailable players, because Atkinson and Benarouz, I don't think they're injured anymore. They're just more or less continuing with their rehab. So we'll see how that develops, and hopefully they'll get some more games with the under-21s. But McCrory is a worry, because if anything happens to George Tanner, you'll be looking at either Taylor Gardner-Hickman at right back or bringing Joe Jones up.
Or Zach.
Well, you could play Zach there and bring in Cal Naismith as a centre back. Yeah, you could do that. So, and obviously we've got who's going to be out for about McCrory and Irakawa are going to be out for, I'm guessing, about 4 weeks.
Yeah, so we're not going to see them this side. We're not going to see either of those two this side of the international break, are we?
I wouldn't have thought so, Dave. No,
that's a shame. I mean, one guy. Ian Gilmore on the text feed here, he said, pleased with the Armstrong. Stop bashing your keyboard, Mark.
Sorry.
In fact, Bennett said, Mark, I think your PC mic might be live rather than the headset. Might be wrong. All right, but that doesn't matter. Ian Gilmore said, very pleased with Armstrong. Looks a presence. We're all in agreement on that. Disappointed with Max Bird. Thought his delivery into the box was shocking. Now, Max, Ian, is a player that, like Knight, can play in that 10, but did today show why we really need to, if not twine, then a 10, or change the shape of the side? Ian and then Mark. Ian, sticking with you on that.
It showed both, Dave, actually. I mean, twine is the missing link in the way Liam Manning wants to play. So you'd assume if we can't get him, and I think next week, I mean, in fairness, there's 21 days to go in the window, and you've got to include weekends in that, because all these directors of football and they all work weekends trying to get these deals over the line. But I think next week will probably be the one where City either tell Burnley to do something or get off the pot. I would prefer Bird next to Knight in that 2, the 4-2-3-1. But if I mean, it's not what I want to do. Liam Manning wants to play with a 10. Twine would be ideal, and Twine also solves your problem with taking set pieces. So that is some, but that's really got to be improved, because some of our set pieces, I mean, the guy that's texted in is 100% correct. We were, some of the number of balls we put in that didn't miss the first defender, or weren't at a decent height, or just floated aimlessly out of play, were awful. And I mean, that is something that all our players need to work on. That the crossing, I mean, Cam Pring can cross the ball. I've seen him do it. And yes, it would help a lot if he had more people in the box to cross it to, but players aren't going to bust a gut and get in the box if they don't think the ball's coming in.
Okay, Mark,
you've got you can include Mehmeti in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, a player that a few people have mentioned on the text feed here is Taylor Gardner-Hickman. I mean, he suffered at West Brom because their manager, was it Carlos Corberán, wasn't quite sure what his best position was, but he has played effectively in that 10. But I guess he's the easiest one to leave out if you looked at a foursome of Williams, Knight, Bird, and himself, sort of thing. Yes. But do you think?
Yeah,
I think TGH could have. Do you think Taylor Gardner-Hickman could have come on? Maybe.
Yeah, possibly, and he has got some qualities. I mean, the stunning goal he got against Middlesbrough was one of them. I think that promised so much more, but I think he's got the same problem now as he had with West Brom. He's a jack of all trades and master of none. Just like to see him, if he's going to start, he needs to start in a defined role. But yeah, he could play in any of those positions. But we got ourselves in a position today where we could have scored some goals. You know, those positions on the pitch in the number 10 role, but the delivery was poor. I don't understand why you play so many crosses high, balloon them up, or just float them in. When if you can either do two things. If you can support the attack, you know, support the forwards with the midfield players coming up, you can either hit the ball across the 6-yard box, the corridor of uncertainty, as they called it, hard and low, or you can play it back to a midfielder making a late run, steam it in. Otherwise, you make it easy for the central defenders, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I'll stick with you, Mark.
Most of the time, it's poor.
Yeah, I'll stick with you, Mark, because Ian had already sort of covered it. I mean, we started well with a very early press, but then Hull had their time when first bit of pressure was self-inflicted, really, when Max was a bit sloppy with a kick that ended up with a corner, but then he redeemed himself. Not that it proved costly, that wayward kick, but those two saves, as Ian said a moment ago, kept us in the game, didn't he?
Yeah, and one was I think from a free kick that went to Jacobs at the back post, and he hit it first time low across the keeper, so saved well there. And then Giles on the left played another great cross in right in front of his Stupinan, and really he just has to get his head over the ball and guide it in, hit it straight down the middle. So it's a good save from Max, but really he shouldn't have had a chance. It should have been 1-0. But yeah, Max is one of the best shot stoppers in the division. He just needs to improve some of his kicking. I think his catching is getting stronger at catching the ball, dominating his area. But some of his passing is poor. He's got to improve that, and he'll be a great goalkeeper instead of a decent one.
Yeah. Ian, question marks about the central defenders allowing Estupinan to get between them. That's Viner and Dickey, and the defence overall. I mean, that is our strong suite, isn't it? It led to us having the fourth best defence in the division last season, but you know they weren't really under any pressure worthy of the name, were they?
Well, I thought Hull looked decent going forward. I thought they had some quite skillful players. Giles has got an absolute wand of a left foot, but he's not a left winger. And where we went wrong, as soon as we got tight on him, they subbed him off and brought on the lad that played for Preston last season, who I like a lot.
I know we don't want to jump too far forward, but he did make a difference to them when he came on, the Canadian international Miller, didn't he?
Yeah, he played very well. I remember him absolutely terrorising Leeds last season when Preston beat them. And I think that, but you've got it. If you stand 5 yards off the bloke and say, "Hey, go on, pal, cross the ball, see what you can do," he's going to put the ball in dangerous areas. And yeah, our defending could have been better, but how you stop that type of thing is you don't let the ball go in the box. And you don't have to defend it 8-10 yards out from goal when it's a flat delivery. The other one was a delivery from a deeper position that Mark Sykes got up and flicked on to the far post to a guy that was in 5 yards of space. So you've got to chalk that. That's not a great free kick. You've got to chalk that up to a really poor defensive header from Mark Sykes. So, no, I think the defence will still be absolutely fine, whether we play a 3, a 4, wing backs or wingers. I think they'll be fine. Where we need to improve, I said it after the Villem game, and as somebody on here said, I've been saying it for a long time. We need to improve on those 6 key areas, but it's the final third, which is the hardest part, where we have to really improve. I thought a lot of our build-up play today was excellent. The possession was good. We managed the ball well. But what we didn't do is, when we had the opportunities, get the delivery right. And we had loads and loads of opportunities to get the delivery right, and we just didn't.
We didn't. And I mean, the word that I used, well, not I used, I think Leroy, because he was in Robin's TV, he used that just taking the wrong option each time. Back to you, Mark. The wrong option, I guess that's the difference between quality players and what we've got, which are quality to a point. And when you said right at the start, you can't blame any of it on Liam because he can tell them what is the right option. But once they go over the line, that's why they're playing at our level. That's why they're in our team. They're not in a bottom of the Premiership team, isn't it? Yeah, it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, and some of our build-up play was also complemented by a number of times that Hull played out from the back and we turned the ball over. It's the next pass that you make. If somebody, where Armstrong was forcing, was helping the press, and they were making some stupid passes. It's the next pass that you make, or the next decision you make after you win the ball from those short passes. That's the difference, and we just didn't do it very well. But it's just when we get to that final third, and it's the first touch. Sometimes we kill the ball instead of touching it on into the channel, making a run past the defender, or playing a first time pass, and we kill the move because then, Pring or Mehmeti or Sykes looks up and has to play the ball back, and they've got 6 players in the box or 7 players instead of 3.
Back to square one.
Just too slow. Take a chance, Put your
we want that.
ball.
Take a chance. A song title there somewhere.
Yeah.
Joe Williams, Mark. I'll stick with you, Mark. I'm going to ask Ian the same question. Joe Williams got booked early on. He's sporting a new, quite short haircut, looking particularly aggressive. He's just signed a new 3-year contract. Yeah. What does Joe Williams bring to the side, and what does he have that maybe Taylor Gardner-Hickman doesn't have? I mean, he's clearly behind in the ranking. He's behind Knight and Bird. But what does he bring to the side? Yeah. And before you answer that, I was just going to say his career, first 2.5 years, certainly the first 2 seasons of his career at City, was blighted by injury issues. But when we signed him from Wigan, he had a reputation for getting booked and sent off on, I call it, his very good season, which attracted our interest. So what does he bring to the side from your perspective, Mark?
Well, he's a battler in the centre of the park. Somebody who does a lot of donkey work, makes tackles, breaks up play, and gives it to more skillful players. He has, on occasion, at West Brom a couple of seasons ago, and Rotherham, got ahead of the ball and scored goals. But we very rarely see him do that, where he's where we pivot. And he's one of the 2 in a 4-2-3-1 that makes those late runs. So he does a lot of the water carrying, if you like, in the centre of the park. Breaks up play and gives it to better players. So he's a safe pair of hands. The problem that he's got is he's a little bit slow when players get goal side of him, as he showed today when he pulled their player down for a professional foul and got booked. So he was going to play on the edge. But he's a tough tackler and he's improved his fitness. But I wouldn't say he's the player that you want who's going to take us up. I think he's just seen as he's the best that we got to do a job in the centre of midfield. But I wouldn't say he's outstanding, and I wouldn't say he's a game changer.
No, Ian, what are your thoughts on Joe? Because we didn't really see anything of him in the first 2 seasons, such that we could wonder why we bought him anyway. Because he just seemed like a tough midfielder, but not, light years behind Jerry Gow in terms of tough tackling and creativity and even goal scoring. What does he offer the side for you?
I think he brings experience. I think he's a strong, phlegmatic character, and he's got decent defensive ability. In other words, he'll get stuck in, and you won't be bullied if you've got characters like Armstrong, Dickey and Williams in a side, there's far less chance you're going to get bullied. I mean, I'd like to see the bloke that could bully Armstrong. Fally, I think. I mean, he's a very good player, and I mean he's another, and he's played 10. So if you're going to play Bird as high as he played at times today, you might as well play a second striker in Fally and just
which is what Gary Hours was arguing for after the game. If you played Fally and Armstrong, you know, defenders
you could play him as a 2. Fally could play as a 10 because he's a footballer. You can see that he's got the movement. He's got the passing ability. He wants to play players in. But I think that that's what Joe gives you. Now you have to decide if that's enough. And I think if we had Scott Twine, you'd see Bird and Knight together in the 2 in front of the 4.
No, you would.
And
if you look at first pick.
See Twine at 10. So you know, you have to decide, right, this is the way we're going to play. What do we need? And then you still need a bloke like Joe Williams on the bench if you're trying to play a game out. But as somebody said on here, he showed very little experience today. And that really was, Joe Williams will know more than anybody what he's done, but it was an absolutely dense thing to do, particularly at that time of the game.
Here's one.
Not looking like they could hit a cow's backside with a shot as far as scoring.
Here's one for both of you. How many of today's starting lineup featured? Because we played Hull at the opening game last season, didn't we? I think.
No, 2 seasons ago.
2 seasons.
I think in either the first or second away game last season.
All right, so it was early door, first away game maybe. But you know, the team's got a very samey look about it. Say for Armstrong starting the Bird, who's direct replacement for James. Let me just ask about James. Because people talk about bringing in players that are better than what we've got. We always seem to have players that are similar, marginally better. And we've given Joe Williams a 3-year contract, right? We've got Taylor Gardner-Hickman there, who's now in the 2nd year of his contract. Ian, is that right? Is he in his 2nd contract? Or is
he signed properly last season, didn't he? Because he was on loan.
Taylor Gardner-Hickman, he's out of contract. I'm looking at Dave's... thingy here.
He signed it last winter.
What I'm saying is, you said, Ian, about having Williams a good player to play the game out. I don't know. I don't know what fans' view is on this, but I'd sooner have given. We wanted Max Bird, but I'd sooner have given Matty James another 1 year for that little bit of experience rather than have Joe Williams, right, who really has only had half a decent season in 4.5 years. Am I being harsh there, Ian? And I'll ask you the same question.
Well, you're asking for something that we tried to do and couldn't because Matty James wouldn't stay for a year. He wanted a longer contract on a lot more money. And at his age, it wasn't going to happen. And I think I'm right in saying, I know he was linked with Rotherham, but I think I'm right in saying he hasn't found another club yet.
Yeah, so he's lost money because he hasn't been paid since the end of June then, correct?
Yeah, I mean, City tried to hold on to him, but he wanted for a year, but he wanted a longer contract and basically not too much money for the club to pay.
Fair enough.
So, you know, you're not going to do that with older players. And I mean, I think Brian Tinnion and Liam Manning have been pretty open about the profile of the players that we want. You know, age, height, size, everything really. They've more or less drawn a picture of the players we want. I mean, Joe's 27, so giving him a 3-year contract is no big deal. And the other thing I'd say, you could bring Taylor Gardner-Hickman in for Joe, and it may strengthen it. But we've talked a bit in the earlier pods about squad depth, and you need that squad depth. So if I don't know, Rob Dickey catches a cold and can't play against Millwall, at the moment we got Cal Naismith can come in and play there.
Oh, we got James. We got what was it? Campbell Slowey as well, or Rob, or Ian, or Hayden Roberts. You know,
or Hayden Roberts. So we've got squad depth. It's only when you get something happen like say McCrory's injury that you think, oh, blimey, who plays right back if anything happens to George? And will George have to play more games than he would do because we might have made... I don't think Liam Manning's going to make many changes. I would, but Liam Manning's going to make... from what he was saying at that meeting we went to, it might be 3 or 4... I reckon it might be 3 or 4 changes, 5 tops when we played Coventry in the Carabao.
Let's try and predict what that might be in a moment. Mark, City best period of the game was right after the break, wasn't it? I mean, we had them penned back, and Mehmeti hit the bar. Knight was wide. Mehmeti had a curler that went behind for a corner. I mean, when you have that level of domination at this level, you'd expect that level of domination to create more chances than what happened there, really, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we took off where we ended the first half, where we didn't get our foot through the ball from Armstrong, and Max Bird got robbed on the edge of the area when he turned to shoot. So it's just it's like powder puff finishing and poor crossing. But we got ourselves in a position, and I haven't seen City dominate a team like that away from home for God knows a long time, because we're normally a team who are seen as a counter-attacking side. We'll just break, with not very many players, but we just passed the ball so well into that final third. It was great to watch, and that is what's so disappointing, that when we do get into those key areas, you could support the man on the ball with short passes. You don't have to play a long cross, but you got to mix it up. But players have also got to make those runs across the defender near post, so you take a defender out, leaving space for somebody behind. You've got to be clever. And like I said, instinctively, and when we come on to the goal, that was the only instinctive bit of play from City in the whole game in the penalty area, because too often they got the ball, you kill the ball, and the move's gone. Just take too long, in terms of shooting. For example, at the end of the first half, Sykes could hit the ball first time on his right foot. He turns inside the defender, it's on his left foot. Little things like that. Even if you miss, if you take that chance, otherwise you recycle the ball. The ball's behind one of our players, or I think there was a pass from Pring when we were on a break, where Armstrong's trying to get the ball. He just needs a ball in front of him. He's played behind him and he falls on his backside. Or Naki Wells just got a slip in Mayuda. Just the simple passes. Just it's so simple, and we get it wrong.
Yeah, Ian, substitutions when they came on the hour. Mayulu straight swap with Armstrong going off, wasn't it? Really, yeah. They're two big blokes, but they're very different. One's very gangly, not quite in the Peter Crouch mold, but he's got, and I think he's got. I like little things that I say Mayulu does. We'll talk about the goal in a second. So change on the hour, and then 71st minute, Wells and Bell coming on for Sykes and Bird. So the timing's nothing unusual about them, and Wells and Bell coming on, obviously giving us a little bit more firepower, I guess. Yes, was that Liam's thinking?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think it was freshening players up. I mean, Bird was blowing, and so was Armstrong, and I think we'll see a lot of that this year. Playing one up top, we've now got two, if you want to call it, two big uns up top that can hold the ball up. Like you said, Dave, they're very different. Mayulu is a player, I think he's more advanced than Armstrong in terms of his touch and playing people in, but he hasn't got the power or the pace of Armstrong, although Liam said he was deceptively fast when we asked him.
I think he's fast with his feet, isn't he? Because he's had the ball. When he's had the ball in a tangle, he's not got the physique, but he's only 2 or 3 times.
He's technically better.
Technically,
yeah,
he's got quick feet.
He's technically better. But I think, could the two of them play together, as somebody suggested? Yeah, and I suggested that as well. Possibly not in this exact formation, but you could do it in a 4-2-4 or a 4-4-2, I should say. But you we had so many opportunities today to do something good and then didn't. And it's very frustrating. That was Chris Honours messaged us and said, it is so frustrating. How didn't we win it? But, you win games of it sounds a really obvious and patronising thing to say, and I don't mean it to be, but you win games of football by sticking the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah.
And we had opportunities to set up chances, but we didn't put them away.
Well,
I mean, you couldn't say Fally's goal was a chance. I mean, he took it back to goal from a defensive slice clearance, flicked it up on his right thigh, spun, and hit a left foot volley into the bottom corner.
He did one like that. He did one like that against Willem Tway, and the goalkeeper got down for it. But he's got that ability.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that happens is the keeper plays a crap clearance, and Tanner just cushions the ball forward, and I think Jacobs on the left completely shanks the ball. So the ball spins. He slices the ball that's behind him to Mayulu. But it's just such a brilliant instinctive piece of play, flicking it up, turning and drop volleying the ball into the bottom corner. It's just just a great goal. After all of that crap, we were saying about bloody time, but it was such a great goal and it deserved to win a game. But we'll come on to the downside. Going back to the formation, if you've got a 4-2-3-1, I mean, when you're attacking, it should really be. I mean, it's a 4-2-4. You've got the two midfield defensive pivot pushing up, to block, and you bring the back four up to sort of lock up your opponent's half, and then you can be attacking with four. So and they can alternate and just pull defenses around. Really, the lone striker bit is probably when you're in transition, but when you're approaching the penalty area, it's really, I suppose, a 4-2-4 if you look at it that way. But it's fluid anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on what Chris Honours said, a little further text edition, and Chris will probably be on one of our pods in the near future. He's over in sunny Spain right now, I believe. But we're looking to try and score the perfect goal. And somebody said on here, Andreas has said, I think you talked about it early on, Mark, but you, Ian, and players making the wrong decision, and senior players as well. Now, if we go 1-0 up on that 2-on-1 situation, we might not have seen the sublime finish from Mayolu because the whole game's different in the immediate aftermath of that. But Ian, that was bad from Naki. We broke, right? And he just needed to slip it in the path of Mayolu. He didn't even get a bloody shot away, did he?
No, he didn't. I mean, our shooting was one of the 6 things I picked out today because it was powder puff, apart from that one that Fally hit. You've got to. I mean, Naki got the ball, got his head down, and in a way, I think he had a bit too much time. So he was thinking, do I take him on? Well, a few years back, I would have done and outpaced him, but now I don't think I can. What do I do? Do I stop and cut inside? And by the time he made up his mind what he was going to do, he'd lost the ball.
Well, that's what I mean. He had options, didn't he? He had three. Had 3 things to do.
Sometimes, Dave,
do I pass it?
You have
take him on, or do I try and punt it?
Yeah, you've had too many. Sometimes, as a player, and Chris will confirm this, you have too many blooming options. Sometimes that's why you'll hear a lot about players where, oh, what a great instinctive finish, because the ball's come over his shoulder, he smacked it in the top corner, and people go, oh, that was it. Yeah, but it was the only thing he could do. He couldn't do anything else. He couldn't bring it down. He couldn't run in. He's just thrown his foot at it skillfully, walloped it, and it's gone in the net. And you get that a lot, especially with younger players. But you shouldn't get it so much with Naki at 34, to be perfectly honest.
Should do better.
Anyway, I've got a new name from you. I'm going to call him, remember Little Richard? I'm going to call him Long Tall Fally.
Wrong talk. That's very good. That's this. You'll get banned from this podcast if you.
Don't. You're trying to get
your use of puns
with the forum.
There's nothing wrong with Long Tall Fally.
No,
Little Richard, can you?
Long Tall Fally with a red shirt, rather than whatever the wording is on there. Mark, Sam Bell didn't make the starting lineup. Came on as an impact sub. The only thing I've got of note here is that Pringy did a pass to Bell, and he just, as Ian has said, many poor crosses. the ball goes nowhere, and Wells is in the clear. I mean, Sam, it's a bit of a big season for him, this one, really, isn't he? Because he's, with the first choice winger Hirakawa, I know he's on the other side coming in. Sam's, it's decision time for him this season, isn't it? Whether he's going to make it as a championship player.
Yeah, I mean, he could have been a hero today. There was a great move down the left. I think it was Viner to Pring. I can't remember. Anyway, the ball was played in on the left, and if he could have just kept the ball down, it would have been a tremendous goal because it was played from back to front. But he just couldn't keep the ball down, and it went over the bar. And those are the sort of things, if he wants to be a starter, he's got to put the ball in the back of the net. But I mean, I think he got knocked off the ball. He's a player who a little bit like Mehmeti, who needs 5 yards of space to run into, and he can terrorise defenders. But he does get knocked off the ball quite easily. But he's a player who can make runs into space. He can score goals, but he's just one of those, like most of our players, quite frustrating. 1 in 5 or a 1 in 4 player. He doesn't do it consistently enough. And if he doesn't do that, then he ain't going to get in the team. But I mean, he might get a start against Coventry in the Carabao Cup. He needs to shooting practice, but there's plenty of other players that do as well.
Yeah. Bennett said on the text, he's sorry to say, but Sam comes across as being very soft. He needs to be sent down the mines for a bit. So maybe a transfer to.
How old?
Yeah, let's not overreact. Hey.
Transfer to Cardiff.
He needs to be sent down the mines. What's he going to say next? Oh, he wouldn't be any good in the trenches.
Yeah, transfer to Cardiff on the cards there. Ian, one of our text commentators, said, what was the substitution of Naismith all about? He came on for Mehmeti, and that person said it disrupted the back four. Now, he came on, and within 90 seconds, equaliser has come, yeah, and it's Joe. So, well, let's first look at it. Naismith coming on for Mehmeti. Is that experience? If you push him back, it does disrupt the back four. You could have bought on Taylor Gardner-Hickman for some extra legs, or you could have just bought Stokes on, a kid. Yeah, I mean,
peek over.
Well, I'm saying that was maybe match day experience for him, because that was really out of the blue, peck over or peek over. But right, first of all, then, did Naismith disrupt the defensive side, which led to the goal?
Not that I saw, Dave, but it's not a substitution I'd have made, because I don't. It depends. If you're trying to close the game out and they bring on, we saw a lot of sides last season, because we weren't the biggest team in the league. They bring on 3 6'5" forwards and just pump the ball in the box. Now, in a situation like that, you might want to bring on the centre back or two, particularly if we sign McNally from Burnley, who's 6'4", 6'5". You might want to do that. Personally, I wouldn't have done it today, because Hull didn't possess that kind of threat. Estupinian, half decent, but he's not that quick. He's probably lost a yard of pace. He's all right with the ball at his feet, but he was out-muscled by our defence today. So, personally, I would have just completely left it alone with a couple of minutes left. But yeah. I can understand why he did it, but it's not something I'd have done.
Right. No. And then the goal,
it was putting an extra defender on.
Yeah.
There. I don't think it disrupted the team. I mean, if anybody, you take him off for anybody, I think the substitution I would have made is take Williams off, and not just in retrospect, but I would have taken Williams off and put Taylor Gardner-Hickman on.
Yeah, the side would not have lost anything from
that. No. I think like most people, I was surprised by the Naismith substitution.
Sit with you. Why didn't Williams get a red card for a foul inside the box?
I don't. All I can think of is it's double jeopardy. The penalty, he's penalised for the penalty rather than the foul. So that's enough. But it was a clumsy challenge, because the ball is played across high. Liam Miller's at the far post. He just heads the ball down into the ground, and all Williams has to do when he approaches their player is just to hold his ground and just close the space. He doesn't have to charge. He just has to stand up, because the central defenders and Tanner are in front of are protecting Max O'Leary, and the ball's not going anywhere unless he makes a cracking shot. He'd have to hit the ball first time, or take a great touch and hit it round those players. Otherwise, it gets recycled and we're favourite to clear the ball. So he doesn't have to do that, but he's just looking. He sort of crouches down, looks at the whole player out of his left eye, and he knows exactly what he's doing. I think you could compare it. I think when we won those 4 games under Dean Holden in the 2020-21 season, we would have won 5 in a row. We were 30 seconds away from beating Barnsley at Oakwell 2-1, and Callum O'Dowda decided.
Oh, don't mention that guy
on the edge of the area. So it's just something that was an aberration in a very disciplined performance. No stupid challenges. I think Jason Knight gave an unlucky free kick away on the edge of the area, just a bad tackle. But there weren't any stupid challenges.
Early on in the game, when Joe got that booking, it wasn't like he was last man, and straight away he puts himself under pressure because he knows he's got to be careful, because if he does something else that's a bit of an aberration, he's second yellow and he's off. Whereas, as you just said, double jeopardy on the penalty, you've got the punishment, and there it is.
Ian, the guy's beating for pace, so he pulls him back. That's a professional foul.
Ian, sorry, you were going to say something. All day. What were you going to say, Ian?
He wouldn't have got a straight red for the foul in the box, but he could have easily got a second yellow. And with Keith Stroud refereeing, I'm amazed, frankly, that he didn't. So it would have been a second yellow, 2 yellows make a red, and you're off.
What did you think of Stroud? Ian, sorry to interrupt. What did you think of Stroud today?
I thought he was okay.
Yeah.
I thought you couldn't put that draw. I was going to say defeat. You couldn't put that draw at Keith Stroud's door. We would have won the game if Joe hadn't done that. And no one will know that more than Joe. And Liam Manning's been out and said, Joe does so much hard work for us and he does so much right. He's done, he knows he's done something wrong and he's standing by him, which is 100% what a manager, you'd expect a manager to do and say about his player. So I'm not surprised that he said that. But Joe Williams will know, Liam Manning will know, and I expect Jason Knight told him, what the did you do that for?
Of course.
Because it was daft. You can't say it's out of character.
No.
Because Joe can be a bit hot-headed at times, let's put it mildly. But, you can't take... If you took all that out of Joe Williams, you wouldn't have a player at all. So hopefully we can put it right by winning our first home game next week.
Okay,
there was one decision that Keith Stroud made that confused me, unless the rules have changed. In the first half, I don't know if you watched this, we played a through ball and it struck Stroud and went to the whole City defender, and they were allowed to attack, and we were under a bit of pressure. They could have scored. They went straight down the other end and they had a chance, and Joe Williams was a bit angry. Now, if it touches the referee, I thought that they have to give the ball back to the side who were in possession prior to
somebody
that.
Else, you're interested, Mark. Somebody else picked that up, and Chris Honor said on the text feed, Stroud seemed to gleefully give them the penalty with relish, because that was, and somebody else said somewhere, I think I heard it on Radio Bristol, that's the 19th game that he's managed Bristol City in his refereeing career or something. But we are where we are. Chris has said on here, how many times I've heard people say, why didn't the manager bring on an extra defender to tighten up? Complete hindsight to criticise that substitution of Naismith coming on. Yeah, okay, maybe, but that's just our opinion. It's criticism.
Yeah, I don't. Whoever the manager brought on, you can't condone. I mean, and you there's no way that he could have foreseen that decision decision that Williams made. It just needed a calm head, and we would have won the game.
Yeah, well done to all the City fans that went up and watched the game. Yeah, you couldn't hear much of them today, and they weren't particularly visible. But there we go. Okay, so 1-1. We want to win every game, but opening day of the season away from home, got a point up at Hull. Should have been 3, no doubt about that. They're a side that's in disarray. because of all the transfers that they've got. They've been quite clever in the transfer market, in my view. It backfired on them last season. Don't know too much about their new manager. Anybody who watched the game on Robin's TV, by the way, I thought Leroy was very good as a match analyzer on there, spoke some very sensible stuff. But now that game's out of the way, and we move on to 3 home games in 11 days. Now, if you get a point on the opening day, you're undefeated. 3 home games in 11 days, 2 against Coventry, 1 against Millwall. I was sort of seen some of the goals that have gone in for Millwall today. They came back from 2-0 down, still lost 3-2 to Watford. The cup game against Coventry, we'll talk about that first, but the next 2 home games, it'd be lovely to win both of them, and then 7 points out of 9, it's happy days, yeah? If you draw the 2 home games, it's 3 points out of 9. If you win one and you lose one, it's 4 points out of 9. It's such fine margins, but let's look forward to Tuesday's game in the Cup. Ian, what would your starting lineup be for that game?
Well, I think the first thing we've got to look at is the number of players available. But I'd certainly like to see Stefan Bajic, Cal Naismith, Harry Cornick, players that didn't start today. So Sam Bell, start Fally with Arm, but you've got to be a little bit careful because you're only allowed 5 players on the bench, not 9.
Right.
So you need a strong bench. So a lot of the players that started today. Now, for example, I'd also start Taylor Gardner-Hickman. I actually put 2 teams on an article I did on X, but we've had a few players injured since then, so I won't just read that out. But I would say Bajic, Naismith, Cornick, TGH, Fally to start, and possibly also Sam Bell. Now that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 changes. Liam Manning said to us that he wants to win every game, so he's not going to make mass changes. Once again, I would, I'm not. It's nice to win all your games, but I'm not. And I noticed that Coventry have sold all of their tickets. I think we give them 2,500 tickets.
Yeah, they're sold. That's a sellout. Yeah,
and that's a sellout. So I think it'll be a decent crowd and a really good atmosphere down there. Bit like the Villem game. But those are the players I'd like to see start. Basically, a lot that didn't start today, and then that means you can freshen it up completely, and go with that again. So you might want to perhaps give Max Bird a rest and bring in Taylor Gardner-Hickman, because I don't think the game's Tuesday, isn't it?
It is Tuesday. Yeah, I thought it was Wednesday for some reason, but Gary Hours, when I was muttering on about Wednesday, he said, "I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday," and it was. Yeah, so that's by the by.
Well, I think, I think he'll go in. Because it's Tuesday, you've then got the follow-up game, which is the home game to Millwall on the 17th. So you can then revert to, if you like, the first team when you play that game. But I think we definitely need to see Bajic in real action, because if anything happens to Max, I mean, Liam said he was pretty confident in him. If anything happens to Max, then he's the guy that's going to come in.
We might as well give him a goal. What would your team be on Tuesday? Sorry, Mark.
Well, the Carabao Cup, to me, I don't think you make any money of it unless you get into the semi-final. So I'd make a few changes. Love to see Raekwon Nelson on the left of the 3, maybe Sam Bell on the right. Definitely bring in Naismith. Definitely bring in Bajic and Taylor Gardner-Hickman. Perhaps with Fally, with Mackie Wells in the number 10. Just experiment a little bit and see what happens. Because I think it'll be an open game. I'm sure Coventry will make a few changes, but we don't want to get any players injured before we play Millwall. And moving forward, I think, at least 4 points from those 2 games. The Millwall one being the really winnable one. But I can't see why we can't win both. Let's be confident. We've got much better players technically, I think, this season. But the last, we look much better technically. Our passing looks better. We just improve our finishing. But I think, I'd love to see Nelson and then have a great game and put some pressure on Mehmeti so he could be on the bench on Saturday. And he's a flyer. He's fearless. Let's see him give Mehmeti a run for his money.
But you say Mehmeti because look, you got Sykes, Mehmeti, and Bell. Those 4 are all. Once Hirakawa's fit, those 4, are fringe players at best, aren't they?
Well, you wouldn't say that they were starters. Hirakawa would come in on the right of the free, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Or in a 4-3-3. So they're not the Sam Bell, Mark Sykes, he subs. Really, I don't think Anis Mehmeti is somebody who's going to get you up into the Premier League or into the top 6. He's only playing because other players are injured. So. But I think he's got to improve, and I think competition's fantastic. So give those players a chance who's shone in pre-season, like Nelson, and get Bajic in the sticks because we worry about him. We haven't seen him, I think, for a couple of seasons. I think he played against Lincoln in the cup, didn't he? When we got knocked out, he certainly hadn't played in the league. And your goalkeeper only has to get injured, going for a fifth, getting his head down in a 50-50, getting kicked in the head or in the shoulder, and then you need to play your backup, and we haven't really got a number 3.
I think if you look, you can put a strong in the cup game. You can have a strong bench. So if they don't live up, but
But does it, like I said, does it really matter with the Carabao Cup?
I don't know.
It's not the FA Cup,
it's 7 years ago we embarked on that famous run that led us to victory at home against. Man United and the 2 games against Man City where we didn't disgrace ourselves.
But like I said, until you get into those later rounds, it's something and nothing. The crowds aren't very big. If you play the bigger teams, they play a complete second string anyway.
They do
in the earlier rounds.
No,
it's only if you play. The Man Cities are a bit of an aberration, really, anomaly compared with the other clubs because they'll always play a strong team. 8 or 9 first teamers because they go deep. But most teams, even in the Premier League, just can't be arsed really by putting strong teams out. So
I'm just saying, Mark, winning becomes a habit. And if you look at the back 4, if you look at the back, look, I don't see Naismith I don't see him as a defender. That's just my own personal opinion.
I think the trouble is that the championship is the championship's a marathon, isn't it, Dave? So you want to protect players. You could play 8 more games than you are in the Premier League, and you've really got to balance fitness against the need to win, certain fixtures. And I don't think the Carabao Cup should be a massive priority, even though we want to win. I think we've got good enough players to bring in to be competitive.
But equally, you want to get a win because you don't want to go into the first home game of the season with a draw where you feel as though you've lost it because you threw away the lead in the very last minute, and then a cup exit. This time last year, we beat Liam Manning's Oxford 5-1, I think, in the first round. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah.
For me, you've given your views on the team. I agree with Bajic. Give him a run out in goal. You can have Max on the bench, yeah?
Yeah.
The back 4, you could... I won't say start Campbell slowly, but Campbell slowly.
Hayden Roberts.
I was just about to say, Ian, you took the words right out.
He could have been brought on the day. Roberts.
He needs some minutes. He's had a limited pre-season because of injury, so he needs some minutes.
Well, he can. He can.
In the middle of the field,
he can play left side of midfield, left side of defence, and he can also make late runs like he did against Norwich and score goals. And he's a bit of a cool guy as well.
I would be playing Naismith in midfield with anyone from Knight, Bird, and Williams. I'd like to see Stokes given a run out. I'd like to see that lad and Taylor Gardner-Hickman. I think Taylor.
Well, just like I said, he could play.
He's got to start. He's got to start.
And I think Taylor Gardner-Hickman and Naismith have got to start, especially Naismith with his injury, because, like I think the commentator said today, He hasn't made a first team appearance since November. He needs a run of games to improve his sharpness. And a fit Cal Naismith is a very good championship player. No question. The question isn't his ability, it's his fitness.
Ian, here's a question for you. This thing with Naismith, I don't see him as a defender, and I go back 2 seasons to Norwich away when he did 2 ricks there, and Blackpool away. I know that's 2 years ago now, but it was like this culture playing out from the back. Could he play in the 10? Because his thing with Naismith, it's all about distribution, and he's a good dead ball kicker. And while we're still umming and ahhing about who fills that role, could he not play in that more advanced role?
I mean, if you're saying could he play there, I suppose he could. I would, if I was going to play Cal Naismith in a team. If you look at Tuesday night, perhaps you could give lots of players a rest, and you could play him next to Taylor Gardner-Hickman as a holding midfield player.
Yeah.
So that's your 2 in front. Your 4. Now your 4 could include Campbell Slowey. It could include Hayden Roberts, and you could leave in Zach Viner, and it right back. You may think, well, I don't really want to risk George Tanner, so I'll let Joe Jones have a game, who's a really good right back. So we have got options. The under-21s are going pretty well.
They're playing on Monday, Ian, aren't they, the under-21s, I think, because they were saying when we had that meeting up there this week, they're giving Benarous minutes, but they're not playing him twice a week, which is good to hear.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, so we've got bags of options. I don't think Liam Manning will make, and I'll take a guess, I don't think he'll make more than 4 or 5 changes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just got to say here, Terry Cole's put a very interesting side up that I think that reads very well, and that is Bajic in goal. It's a 4-3-3 formation. Bajic in goal, Tanner, Viner, Dickey, Roberts, midfield, TGH, Naismith and Stokes, up front, Armstrong, Maulu and Peckover. Never gonna happen, but goodness me, that would be a little bit too attacking, I think, really there. It's one experienced player short, but I like the look of that. Chris Honor has just said as well. Chris, I did send you, I know you're listening, I did send you a link, but come on Wednesday morning when we do the commentary. And Chris has said that winning is a habit, very important to the club, but so is fitness levels, mentality, confidence, momentum, performances and pattern as a sign of progress and desire to challenge later in the league season. Chris, 100% right there. And that's the views of a professional. And Ian, somebody said, scattered dreams, said, give Tommy a game. And Ian said, Tommy will be gone. So do you think he will be gone by Tuesday evening?
I think it's probably gone by Wednesday is more likely. It's not done yet, but of the 2 clubs interested, in fact, Hull's chairman was interviewed tonight and said, we think Conway's more keen on joining Middlesbrough. So my guess all along has been Middlesbrough plus and with the attraction of Michael Carrick. So, and let's be honest, Middlesbrough will probably pay him $5,000 a week more than we will, and he'll get a decent contract. So, if the lad wants to leave the club, off he goes. But
he's gone now. He's gone.
Finished. Well, what they've done. I mean, you could see today why Hull wanted him. With you imagine if Tommy was up front and he'd have put away at least one of the 2 really good chances they created, and of course he's a penalty taker. Yeah. So I think as somebody said on air, you need Knight, Williams, and Bird with full batteries for Saturday. I think if we haven't got Scott Twine done and dusted by the end of next week, I think you could well see another 10 come in, because we know Liam is very, very fixed on the way he wants to play. I think it's fair to say after the conversation we had with him last week, he knows how he wants to play, and I don't think it's going to change a lot. He's not suddenly going to go, well, hang on a minute, I think I'll go 3 at the back now and play with wing backs. unless it's really starting to fall apart. So that's the player he wants. Let's hope he gets him. But I can't see us bringing him in next week. But I could see. I'll say Tommy probably gone by the end of the week, I reckon.
Yeah. And
end
we're
of next
not
week.
going to offer. We're not going to. But just repeating the what was on the fans forum, and Matt Withers, we discussed this at that meeting on Tuesday. But most City fans do not feel we should pay more than £3 million for Scott Twine. I think that's the general consensus. And where Burnley are on that spectrum, it ain't like a few 100,000. So personally, I think we should move on, and there's other players out there to give us different options. Okay, look, I mean, I'm pleased to say that we've got, I don't think everybody's listening at the same time, but 329 viewings of this while we're doing it live. And if you look at
that's brilliant.
If you look at
thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, if you look at Willem Tway and the 2 preview games that we did, that's not 3,000 different people, but it was 3,000 downloads, and that's we're still quite a bit behind one stream and 3 peeps, but it is what it is. We were the last podcast to come, even though this is season 5 for us, but that 342 it's gone up to now, which is fantastic. But
are we on?
For me, it's the more the merrier. It doesn't matter who's got what and the rest of it. For me, it's all interest in the club, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Are we on that channel? Are we on that channel? That commercial channel at all this season, David?
Which one's that?
We on Talk Sport?
We're still part of the Talk Sport Fans Network. Yeah, I mean that just means that we have adverts, and that's my other daughter doing the voiceover. One of my daughters doing the voiceover for the Sky Sports Plus under duress, as you'll hear. When she was a bit like one of those hostage videos when we were. I was saying, please, can you do that? It's not on a video.
Don't talk yourself into trouble, David. This is going live. Don't start talking about
one thing that we haven't mentioned, and that's Bradley Dack. I mean, somebody was obviously on the
somebody said Ian likes Bradley. What's all that, Ian? What's all that about?
There was about 4 pages on the forum about Bradley Dack coming here, and I think somebody had just stepped out of a time machine, because 10 years ago he would have been a decent signing, but he's never been the same since that advert with his missus when somebody drops a skip on his head, and her for that matter. But
Olivia Atwood.
Olivia,
documentary maker.
Olivia, she's quite funny actually. So we will be doing the Coventry game at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning. So please listen out for that one. And obviously, when I get around to doing it tonight, I'll upload this episode onto the podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. So those of you listening on there, stating the obvious there, because that's uploaded by the time I do that. I'm waffling now. But Ian and Mark, thanks for your contributions, as always. And everybody, thanks a lot for listening. All the best, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks very much for listening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe this week.